Hello and welcome to Murphy's Garden, and you join me here in the parterre on what is the most beautiful day. It's absolutely glorious, blue skies, and I'm sitting here by the roses just enjoying the lovely smell of the Desdemona David Austin roses. But this video is all about drought because as gardeners we are a stressy lot, and although the weather's glorious, rather than just enjoying it, a lot of us start to get a little bit stressed about our plants all shriveling up and dying. So this is a good time to talk about this subject because it's actually the week of the 12th of the 16th of May, which is what it is at the moment, is water saving week, which I didn't know about, but I learned about in this magazine, The Garden, the RHS's magazine, The Garden. So it's reminding us that water is such a precious resource, and it's a not-for-profit organisation, Waterwise, that is their initiative. So in this article it talks about how important it is to collect water, and we as gardeners are really on it when it comes to lots of water butts. I think we've got about 7 water butts around the garden, but I know myself from round by the greenhouse that my 3 water butts around there are already empty, and it's only May. So the problem is at the moment is that although we get enough water over the course of the year, all the water comes at once and then all the drought comes at once, and it's quite difficult juggling it and trying to have enough water and store enough water. But perhaps what we don't think about is that the best place to store water and the largest surface area in which to do so is in our soil. And in that article it estimates that the average UK garden can store equivalent to 270 water butts worth of water in the soil if the soil is healthy. So I think going forward that's definitely the thing to do. I know when I was new to gardening, that just was a bit boring, and that wasn't a priority. I wanted to grow nice flowers, nice plants, and putting manure on things was a bit unglamorous, and I wasn't interested in that. But the tables have turned as I have got older, and now it's one of my favourite subjects, and you're probably all fed up of hearing me talk about it, but I just love composting. I just love it. I can't tell you how much I love it. So I'm trying to make you all love it as much as I do. So what's interesting to know is that the area that in which we planted the trees, that is our worst part of the garden. It's arid, it's like a desert, and it literally is like a desert because it's on sand. And those of you that watch the channel will know when we planted the trees, the state of the soil, it was just pure, it literally looked like building sand, and they do quarry sand around here. So we know that it is, there is lots of big sand pockets in this area. So planting in that area was always going to be a bit problematic. So we put masses and masses of manure on there. And then since that, I've been mulching with deep, thick layers of bark chippings. And I did it last spring, and I've done it again this spring. So I wanted to see, out of curiosity, because we've had this dry spell, what the soil is like under those bark chippings. So I pushed back all the bark chippings and put my trowel in and dug down just to see if there's any moisture there, and to my delight there's loads of moisture in there. It's really moist, and I have been watering a little bit around the tree areas themselves, but I chose an area which hasn't been watered, and yes, there was lots of moisture in there, which was really, really gratifying to see. So it shows it works, and I am just conducting another little experiment just to prove my point. So we'll come on to that in a minute. But what I want to talk about today is a product called Strulch. So as I said, I'm here in the parterre, and in this part of the garden I've been using a product called Strulch for over 2 years. I did a video called Strulch Mulch, Is It Any Good? When I first put it down, and I liked it at the time, but obviously I hadn't lived with it for very long. So now I think it's time to renew it. It says it lasts for 2 years, and it has done. And now is the time to renew it. So it's a good opportunity just to review what it's like to use and the benefits of it. And I'm not sponsored in any way. This video isn't sponsored. I've bought the product myself. I bought the product myself last time. But what I would say about it is the reason I'm using it, as well as retaining moisture, but the main reason was that I'm so fed up of weeding this area. It was a constant weeding battle. All the weed seeds kind of blow in from the fields. It's a windy garden. the wind carries the weed seeds, they land on the soil, they germinate, and I'm just constantly in there, and particularly when the roses are right and you don't want to break the roses. But I was crawling in under all the thorns, weeding all the time, and it took away the enjoyment of the area because I just looked at it as a bit of a load of work. So this has transformed that. So since using Strulch, I don't weed. I can honestly say I never weed this area. I just don't need to. However, just in the last month or so, I'm noticing that there are a few little weeds appearing. So I think it's now time to renew the Strulch. So this is a video all about Strulch, why I'm using it as opposed to other mulches. So let's head back in time when I did this job and put the Strulch down in this area. But I have certainly found that composting and mulching are the key to a good garden, and it takes your garden from putting plants in that are just surviving to making plants that actually thrive and do really, really well. So that's the difference. That's how to up your game in gardening. So let's head back in time and discuss why we're using Strulch in this area. So the reason I use Strulch mulch here as opposed to other mulches, and I have tried using grass, mown grass. I used that last year in the vegetable patch and also in the new area around there and down by the house, and I really didn't like it. And the reason I didn't like it is because I was concerned I'd get weed seeds everywhere and grass coming up, but I didn't have that problem. But what I had, the whole area got covered in moss, and there's still now a problem down in there and up there with just a carpet of moss over everything. So for that reason, I won't use grass again. I do use wood chippings. I use wood chippings a lot. You saw me doing it around the new tree area. But somebody I spoke to recently, they were saying that they'd bought some new trees, put them all in and put wood chippings to suppress the weeds, and they've now got a disease and all of the trees have died. That kind of like, oh gosh, that's awful. But when you think about it, tree surgeons, who we get our chippings from, often, most of us do, they're often getting called out to take diseased trees down, trees with canker and phytophthora and all of those horrible diseases. They're the ones that get called in to get rid of trees with diseases, and so they chip them as well as healthier branches and things, and it all gets mixed up into the mix. So there's a good chance that some of the wood chippings may have disease in them, which is something I hadn't really thought of, and it's quite alarming really, which is kind of good because we've got the wood chipper now, so hopefully most of the wood chipping that we're chipping, we know what it is and where it's come from. But for this area, we've got roses and we've got box. Both plants are quite prone to diseases, and so for that reason I don't want to take any chances. So I've been using a product called Strulch. We'll head over to the pallet which has been delivered and I'll show you how it comes. So I'm here on my pallet of Strulch. So it comes on this pallet and there are 12 bags in total, and each bag is 13.5 kilograms, whereas when you buy it from a retail outlet such as a garden centre or a nursery, the bags that you buy are 9 kilograms, so they're already quite a lot bigger each one. So because I've used it in the past, I know that I like it, and I decided that if I want to keep using it, so I decided it's cheaper just to buy it in bulk. So that's what I've done. This cost £204 for these, but you'll see how far it goes when we come on to use it, but it is a big investment. So perhaps just buy one bag to see how you get on with it, but we'll discuss the reasons I'm using it and why I like it as we go through the video. So let's get this moved. Clearly one of the disadvantages of using this product as opposed to bark chippings, which we usually get in the trailer, is all the packaging. So there's a lot of plastic packaging that's wasted. However, these bags I have found to be really quite strong, and so what I intend to use them for, I use them for like lining hanging baskets and things like that. They're black on the inside, which is quite good to line baskets with. And also what I'm going to use them for is when I sieve my compost, I'm going to put it in these bags so that they're handy for moving around the garden. So I will reuse them. And it's not that heavy to move either. It looks as if I'm carrying a lot, but it's really good and fairly lightweight to work with. And you'll see here as I pass the Hornbeam Walk, one of the things I don't like about bark chippings, and that is this: the birds flick it everywhere onto the path. It's a constant battle to keep sweeping it all back in again, and as soon as you do, the birds flick it all back out again. So that's one of the things I want to experiment with here. I'd like to Strulch all of this area underneath the Hornbeam Walk to see whether it binds a little bit better and stops this problem with it being flicked out. But for now, we're going to go and do this in the rose parterre. So the first thing to do is to weed the area really well. So I've weeded this quadrant really well, and you can see the Strulch from before. So it's still there, but it's just getting a little bit patchy in places. A couple of weeds I've missed. So yeah, that's why I'm starting to get some weeds. But when it's on quite thick, the weeds just cannot come through here. But this is what the Strulch looks like after 2 years. So it's still there, but just starting to break down a little bit. And on this side, I've still got to clear all the weeds so you can just see what the weeds look like. I've got these tulips that this is from historically. These tulips come up. I no longer plant tulips in these quadrants anymore, but these historically just keep appearing. So I will get rid of all that tulip foliage. And you can just see some just little annual weeds and some nettles, some grass there at the back, which is why I want to renew it, because I normally don't have this problem. And before I put the Strulch down, when you put the Strulch down, you're really locking in the moisture. And if there isn't any moisture, if it's been very dry, then it's going to make it harder for the nutrients and moisture to get down to the plant. So what I like to do is feed the plants really well and then water them really well before I Strulch if it's been a bit dry, which it has been. So I'm just using a rose and shrub fertiliser, and I'm just going to put some granules all around the rose, and they can be released over the course of the summer. And then I leave the hose on each individual rose for about 15 minutes. And before I Strulch, I can just put the Strulch all down here. It's easy enough to do, but before I do, once it's done, it really kind of locks together, and you don't really want to be disturbing it if you can help it. So normally every year I put some manure around the roses because we're on this very sandy soil. I did do it last year, I did do it quite a lot last year, but I haven't done it this year. So instead I've got some of our compost, which has been nicely sieved. So I'm just taking opportunity to put some compost around each of the plants. I've put the rose and shrub feed round each one, and I've got the hose on in the background just so the water can really sink into the roots, really give it a good soak, and then I'll be putting the Strulch on to lock all that moisture in. So this is what it looks like. It's mineralised straw that's been treated, and it's got this lovely earthy smell to it, which is really nice. And when you put it on about 3 to 4 centimetres in thickness, and that way the airborne weeds can't get to the soil and the weeds underneath can't get through. It's an impenetrable barrier. So it's really nice to use. It's lightweight to use. It's no trouble. It's not heavy, the bag, even though the bag is 3.5 kilograms. I can lift it, no problem. So it's probably less physical than hawking about wood chippings. And that's how it goes on. And Strulch mulch claims to reduce weed growth by up to 95%, which I definitely think is true. It helps retain moisture, as we said, around the plants. It enriches the soil and its structure. It's suitable around flowers, shrubs, fruit or vegetables. And it lasts up to 2 years, as I've said. The physical properties of Strulch, together with the embedded minerals, deter slugs and snails. I haven't got a huge problem with slugs and snails, so I'll be interested to hear if those of you that have got slug and snail problems, has it helped with that as a problem? We're off to the Chelsea Flower Show very soon, and last year water storage was very much a big feature in many of the gardens, as I'm sure it will be this year. The Water Aid Garden by Tom Massey demonstrated how the power of rainwater,
our most precious natural resource, can be harnessed in striking and innovative ways, highlighting the importance of sustainable water management and addressing the dual challenge of flood and drought that many of us gardeners are facing. And he offered some water saving and reuse techniques. The garden was incredible and had some great ideas, and Tom is very passionate about this topic and has a book called The Resilient Garden, which is full of practical ideas. And following on from the success of the WaterAid Garden collaboration, Tom and G will demonstrate this year how AI and technology can be used with resilience over time, particularly in the face of the climate crisis. So join us when we go and visit this garden next week. However, some of these ideas, although innovative, may seem a little unachievable to the average gardener, but perhaps, although less glamorous, this is a really practical way to make your garden more resilient and to reduce evaporation. And just look how nice it looks. It makes the area look really kind of professional and of a really high standard. And the best bit, as I keep saying, is that you don't have to do the work. The workload is vastly reduced. So that's this area all done. And we'll move on to the Hornbeam Walk. But before I do, I'm just going to take this opportunity to spray the box hedging with the Top Boxes product, just belt and braces, and then I know this area is all done and we can move on to other parts, knowing that I don't need to revisit this for quite some time. This is a little experiment that I'm going to conduct just to prove this point. So I've got 2 trays of compost, exactly the same compost, both the same trays. I've put water on both, the same amount, and then on one I'm going to cover with Strulch and the other one I'm going to leave, and I'm putting them both in the greenhouse where it's quite hot, and I'm going to monitor to see what happens. So 2 days has gone by and the compost still feels, it doesn't feel dried out, it's crumbly, but there's no moisture really there. Whereas if I scrape back the Strulch carefully, the soil under here is still very, very wet. It's held on to all of that moisture. That moisture hasn't gone anywhere here, so much so you can actually wring it out and it drips. So that quite clearly shows that the Strulch has stopped any evaporation, whereas this one, although still nice, and it is quite nice compost, much nicer than would be in the average garden soil. So it's still nice, but it's not holding on to the moisture in quite the same way. So definitely shows Strulch to do its job.
So now I've done the parterre, I'm moving on to the Hornbeam Walk, and you'll see in the Hornbeam Walk that I did put wood chippings all over it, but it gets flicked onto the path, and it really irritates me every time I come out. I have to sweep it and push it all back in again. So I'm going to experiment with the Strulch to see if that works any better. I've put it on here. I don't know how much I've got, whether I've got enough to do the whole thing. So I'm just going to put it at the edge. I still have got the bark chippings further back, but it's the edge is the problem. So the skimmias were looking a little bit unhealthy. So I'm just taking this opportunity, like I did with the roses, to fertilise them. I've given them a really good water, and then I've just drenched them in a seaweed feed, which should improve the colour because they do look a little bit yellow, some of the leaves, although they have got quite a lot of new leaves on them. But if I turn the camera around, you'll see on this side how messy it really looks. The soil is a bit high really, so I'm going to try and take off some of the soil at the edge. I'm going to use these wood chippings and I'm just putting it on the borders, and that actually looks quite nice on the borders. So we'll see how that performs over the next 2 years and see whether it does as well as it does in the parterre. So a few weeks has gone by since we put the Strulch down on the Hornbeam Walk. So far so good. It does definitely still get flicked about by the blackbirds, but I think that's just inevitable because they're looking for worms. It's fair enough. And I have heard that there's a horrible disease going around that's affecting blackbirds. So and that's caused by mosquitoes. It's horrible. So just reading about that. So anyway, the blackbirds have got to find their worms, so I don't begrudge them too much when they flick it onto the path. But it definitely doesn't flick as far and doesn't look quite so untidy, and it's much easier just to brush it back in again than the bark chippings, which seem to go absolutely everywhere. So from that perspective, it looks much nicer. It looks absolutely fantastic. And incidentally, that the 12 bags that I had, I had the perfect amount. So really note to self that that's how much it takes to do the parterre and all of this area. I think that works out that it's probably about 54 metres squared in total that I've covered with 12 of the big bags. So that's just good to know. Incidentally, the skimmias look absolutely amazing. I gave them that seaweed drench all over the top and gave them a really good drink, and they put the Strulch on and they've really greened up and they look incredible. They look really bright green, so that's always good to know. So that's it really for this video. Just to say, we're going to be heading to the Chelsea Flower Show next week, so that's the highlight of the year. So I need to get something to wear for that. I don't want to leave the garden to go shopping, so I'm going to have to just have a think about what on earth I could wear, because I really don't want to go shopping. I want to stay in this lovely garden. So anyway, that's just me mumbling, but thank you very much for watching, and join us again in the next video. Bye for now.